4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Usable.
Okay.
Sure thing. No worries. Ciao.
C'est pas que aussi grand que ça. Je m'attendais pas un truc avec autant de building et tout, tu vois. Oui, tu savais toi?
Ouais, bon, c'est sûr que je vais faire un truc qui soit de travailler, quoi. Il y a des remparts, quoi, et entre des remparts, un clocher et du marnage, quoi. La ligne un peu bas, là, ouais.
Moi, il y a du vent à rentrer là-bas. Sans vouloir être...
Welcome to the arrivals of leg 3 at Melbourne, Australia. It's been an unbelievable leg, and this city in Australia is going to welcome all the teams. It's already seen the Spanish boat Mafre pull into the harbour. Now, as daylight reaches the fleet, the warmth of the city is lying in wait for all the crews to follow suit and find a welcome relief from all the incredible hard work that we've been seeing over the last few days. With me, as always, I've got Conrad Coleman, and Conrad, we are going to go straight to these incredible live images as we watch Dongfeng race team blitzing their way into the finish line. It's not the result that they wanted, considering they were leading the majority of this leg. However, they are coming in here in fine form.
Just 4 days ago, just a few hundred miles away before this moment here, most remarkably, we saw this team here, Dongfeng race team and Team Mafre, the Spanish boat that finally came in to clinch the win. They were crossing tacks or crossing jibes all the way down by the ice gate, and certainly after having led most of this leg, I think they may well be disappointed with this, but so much has happened in just the last 4 days.
So much has happened in the last 4 days, so much has been happening over this leg, and there is so much still happening on the water. We've seen Mafre finish, we're about to follow Dongfeng race team across the line, but also there is so much happening behind them. The red trail right now, at the top of your picture, Dongfeng race team, nearly 20 knots as they fire their way into the finish line. But look at this, in third place, Vestas 11th Hour Racing into the bay, and an unbelievably different line going through there. The breeze maybe a little different there for the team. Team Brunel inside the harbour as well, but far enough back from Vestas 11th Hour Racing that we can pretty much say with certainty that these are going to be the positions that we expect these boats to finish in. The first one to finish of the next 3, Dongfeng race team claiming second place. And you know, Conrad, you were saying before there's been so many hardships for this boat, but how much are you reviewing? You know, you've been out there as a solo offshore sailor. How much are you reviewing what's gone wrong and what's gone right, and how much are you just looking forward to the warmth and the safety of the land?
Well, absolutely, first things first, they're going to be absolutely excited about getting into the arms of their loved ones. Hopefully, primarily a French and Chinese team, so they will have had to, their family and friends will have had to have come a long way to greet them here at the Melbourne docks. But frankly, after spending, just looking over my shoulder here, 2 weeks and 8 hours at sea, they will be looking forward to a warm shower, a hot burger, and a clean bed. Then tomorrow, I think after the Christmas festivities, they will be, well, having a fairly serious debrief as to what they could learn from this leg 3, and indeed probably look back at the few crucial jibes that we saw earlier, just 4 days ago, that allowed Mafre to stay in better pressure and make a break from them. So they really had this leg to lose, and lose they did. Admittedly, I'm being a little bit rough on them because they're coming in on second place. They will take the second place overall in the Volvo Ocean race on countback against Vestas 11th Hour Racing. So for sure, for Charles Coudrolier's team, perhaps a bit of a disappointment, but they're still in really good stead after leg 3 in this edition of the race.
Now, we're seeing some aerial footages here from the helicopter that's following it in. A moment ago, we had the onboard footage, and there's something here I just want to point out for those people that are watching. You can see these purple lines running down the deck from inside the hatch off the stern, and that is a pumping system that is just pumping water out from the middle of the bilge out. Now, Conrad, this is the keel ram problem that they had. I believe it was about 24 hours ago we first sort of learnt about it. We're not too sure of what the details are, but either way, something that's caused them to slow down.
Well, absolutely. The way that these boats are constructed is all around a canting keel, and so this is the massive keel fin that dives down through the boat. And in order to have a canting keel, you need to have the head of the keel up inside the middle of the boat. You can see it there on the left-hand side of your screen, briefly making an appearance there underneath the waves. And so the head of the keel inside the boat is pushed backwards and forwards between two rams, two hydraulic rams, much like a digger or an excavator. And so there's one on port and there's one on starboard, and it sounds like the one on port has come a cropper in some kind of way. That the way that the ram is fixed into the structure of the boat seems to have failed, either the structure of the boat or the hydraulic ram itself. We will keep you up to date on the analysis of that problem as more details come to light. But yeah, it seems that some part of that waterproof box with the keel head has sprung a leak, and they've got, well, not all hands on the pumps, they've got all hands on the pumps trimming the sails as they come into the last few hundred meters before the finish line. But it sounds like the electric bilge pumps have been earning their place on board, that's for sure.
And I just want to pick your brains here about what it is that makes these boats go so fast, because as the helicopter's circling around, I'm seeing masthead 0, the big sail at the front, seeing J2, J3. That was exactly what we saw with Mafre coming in, and it's so important to point out that in a difference to Volvo Ocean Race editions of the past, all of these boats are exactly the same. All the equipment that the sailors get to use is exactly the same.
That's right. We've had a couple of questions about that recently and a few comments by email. And I'd just like to share a little bit of an anecdote with you. In Lisbon, during the final assembly phase before the start of the race, I saw Jack, the former race director and now measurer, or part of the measurement team, and he was there measuring individual lead shot into canisters, which were then put onto the boats. And so I can say with a great deal of surety that not only do the boats all weigh the same and they use exactly the same sails, but they are weight corrected on each individual component. So incredibly rigorous tests for the mast and the boom, they weigh exactly the same, and if they don't, they are corrected to the nearest gram. So there's not Mafre that is fastest or Dongfeng that is fastest. It's not red paint that makes a boat go fast. These are exactly the same boats, and it's just that the two most experienced teams and the two most committed teams are the ones that are at the front that we see today.
And a large part of that whole operation is looking after the boat, because that is your equipment each time it comes to shore. And one person with an awful lot of responsibility in that regard is Nick Bice. He's the manager of the boatyard that follows the event all the way around the world, looking after the equipment for the teams and with the teams. And let's be fair, in this short stopover in Melbourne, they've got a little bit on. Nick Bice is actually chasing Dongfeng race team in on the rib, and we can hear from him now.
And that's exactly what we're doing now. We are seriously chasing Dongfeng in here now, and they've definitely got their foot down. They're looking, and probably only a couple of minutes away from the finish line here. So this is fantastic. The boat looks wonderful, and what a way to come in just on Christmas Day. Sun is not exactly shining, but we're definitely in daylight, so it's wonderful. Beautiful pictures here.
Oh, Nick on the rib there. We're not too, the connection between us and Nick, not too good, because he's absolutely hammering down right now, following Dongfeng race team along. And interesting to point out, we've got a helicopter circling around this boat. It's a fair bit of chop on the water. It's actually a bit of sailing left to go for this team.
Well, that's right. You can see the waves following them in. They've been sailing downwind all the way through the bay after making it in through the heads, and that tricky navigation that they had to do in order to get through a very narrow channel, leaving a big shallow portion to the port side. And then afterwards there's a sort of 40-mile sail downwind, driving in through Port Phillip Bay, down towards the city centre that we can see just in front of the boats now. So pretty mild conditions, because protected waters, pretty short fetch, as in not much range for the waves to build up again. So yeah, sure, it's got a little bit of chop out there, but this is going to look like a holiday after the rough conditions and the relentless pace and certainly the relentless maneuvers that they've had to do all the way along the ice exclusion zone through the Indian Ocean.
And I'm just trying to work out here the angle that they're sailing and the position of the finish line. We are basically on the other side of the planet. We are in Alicante, Spain, in Volvo Ocean Race headquarters. Our team is on the ground, waiting for them by the finish line and waiting for them on the dock. I'm just wondering whether they've been able to sail deep enough to actually go through that finish line without needing to jibe. Earlier on, the computer was giving every indication that it was going to be a jibe, and some of you have been asking a lot about what it takes to jibe these boats, but I think even now that we've got the perfect opportunity with the onboard shots, they've got pressure there and they're bearing away beautifully.
It's going to be straight in, I think. You know, with all of the sail area up, they're able to extract just so much power from the relatively mild conditions that they have at the moment. And you can see that they're approaching the end of the breakwater there. That is the finish line. That is the mark of salvation after the thrashing that they've had in the last 2 weeks down in the southern Indian Ocean. That these last few hundred meters, when they know that they've got that second place in the bag, they've just got a couple more serves to do before the finish. That's when you can really savor the result that they've been able to pull off.
Well, that's where the computer thinks the finish line is at the moment. So a little bit of distance to go. So just using that time, Conrad, a few of our fans here might be wondering, why push so hard? Why have 3 sails up? You know you've got second in the bank. But of course, in the scoring, the overall time also counts.
Absolutely. You know, they could well have filled up all of the sails and sat on the back and enjoyed a pina colada as they did these last 40 miles down the bay. But you're exactly right, Niall. We've got a bit of a complicated scoring system this time round. It was Mafre that took the bonus point. There are double points on this leg, so we'll talk a little bit more about that later when we put up the scoreboard. But yes, absolutely, it pays to push all the way to the finish line because there is one extra bonus point available when all the singing and dancing is done. When they get to The Hague, there is one more bonus point that is available.
Well, they are meters away from the finish line, the telltale bear away of Dongfeng race team. They do not want to do another jibe. And if you've been following the race through the Southern Ocean, you will know exactly why this team does not want to put that maneuver out any more. Jibe after jibe along the ice exclusion zone. And now, Dongfeng race team celebrations. They cross the finish line, a second place result, and still very much at the top of this fleet as we complete 3 legs of the Volvo Ocean Race. There's the celebrations for the crew. Nobody ever wants to celebrate until they've crossed the finish line, even with such a gap between them and third place. Jack Putel, his second time at the Volvo Ocean Race. And Caroline Brouwer as well at the back. Kevin Escoffier as well. And there is Liu Xue, the Chinese sailor on board, sailed with Dongfeng race team in the last edition and comes back to this edition of the Volvo Ocean Race much the wiser. And Pascal Verdiggery as well, getting a little bit of a rough celebration as well. Well, now, Conrad, there we can see a pretty clear view of that purple line just coming through the deck with the water being pumped out of the boat. A little bit of work for the team as they get themselves in, get themselves ready for the next race. But it's not the result they would have wanted because they spent so long at the front. But a second very much keeps it alive.
Well, absolutely. But so we've crunched the numbers here in Race HQ, and as I said earlier, they have taken the second spot overall with 23 points. Vestas 11th Hour Racing coming in tied equal, but because Dongfeng Race Team beat them in this leg, they win the tiebreaker. So yes, second place overall, second place on the leg. Not bad for a team that just last time were considered absolute rookies. However, they put everything that they needed, all of the resources, all of the management, all of the time to prepare for this race that they needed. They're one of the absolute favourites. They are here to win, and anything other than that is not going to be accepted by a famously passionate French skipper, Charles Cordelier. He is here for the top prize, nothing aside from that. And really, when you look at the caliber of the crew on board, well, top to bottom, they are winners. We've got world champions, we've got World Speed and Record Council 24-hour record holders. We've got Olympic medalists. We've got previous winners of the Volvo Ocean Race on board, Figaro, all the way through the French sailing classes. And so these guys, for sure, they had a somewhat muted celebration when they crossed the line. Second place is great, but they are here to upend the rankings on Mafre. Looks like we've got a bit of a struggle there. Potentially some sail damage. It's strange to see so much of a flap hanging off there at the tack of their masthead Code Zero. They've just done 6,500 miles through one of the toughest oceans in the world, and so perhaps it's normal if things are looking a little bit tired. Most notably, we saw a lot of fatigue on the sailors and in their eyes. That I look forward to the interviews when they finally make it into the dock and we can see just how much of a trace that this rough leg has left behind.
And this is a real trademark that we always see when the teams cross the finish line. There's never any rush to drop these sails. You've got to be ginger with them.
Yeah, for sure. That now the pressure is off. They normally have 6 people lined up on the furling units, as you can see here, as they engage a new furling line to furl up perhaps the J3 before the J2. Now the pressure is off. There's a nice big bear away, and this is not the moment to rush into things. They're going to be tired, and they've done this maneuver hundreds of times over the past 14 days, and so I think they've earned a little bit of time, a little bit of clemency to take their time this time.
We're seeing shots from onboard. These are live images, if you've just joined us, of Dongfeng race team crossing the finish line for leg 3 of the Volvo Ocean Race and taking second place. Their main rivals, Mafre, the Spanish team who are trying to be the first Spanish team in the history of the Volvo Ocean Race to win, took first, and that puts them ahead in the overall by a relatively comfy margin. Dongfeng race team in second, and it looks to be Vestas 11th Hour Racing crossing in third, will mean that the Chinese French team and Vestas 11th Hour Racing are joint on point. However, 3 legs completed, plenty more race to go, and right now all of the teams, their only consideration will be getting to the dock, getting their equipment safely tied up in one piece, and then getting a very well-deserved rest. It has been an unbelievable Southern Ocean leg. It has been purely about battling the elements, and it was really interesting to hear some of the sailors, not least Charles Cordrelia, the skipper of Dongfeng race team, saying that the Southern Ocean, that's the one place he doesn't race. He likes to hold back a little. There's a point where you have to say, do you know what? I need to keep my boat in one piece. Now, how much of that was just outfoxing the competition, or how much of that was true? Well, you would know better than anyone else.
Well, I think, frankly, that he may have been looking after not only the boat but also the crew. Remember, both of these teams put a lot of effort into physical preparation before the start of the race. These are incredibly physical boats to sail and certainly to be doing maneuvers. And this is an incredibly high-stakes game that they were playing. Remember, 4 days ago, or counting the other way, 10 days into the leg, they were sailing hundreds of meters away from each other, in sight of each other, and banging away jibes like at a rhythm that we just could not believe here in the office. Now, remember, any one of those jibes could have ruined their leg and indeed their race. As we saw from ExxonMobil, it takes just one brief moment of inattention as helmsman Chris Nicholson frankly told us very clearly, that they chose the wrong moment to jibe. They were poorly prepared, and it cost them this leg. That could have happened on any one of the perhaps 100 jibes they did over the course of the past 2 weeks. And so clearly they're incredibly well prepared. However, what you were just talking about in terms of preserving the boat and the crew and not racing, maybe that cost them the leg, because we saw there was one crucial moment 4 days ago when the two red boats, Mafre and Dongfeng race team, were right next door to each other. Mafre did more than twice the number of jives over the course of one 10-hour period. That allowed them to stay in a little bit of better pressure, allow them to extend, get into a new weather system, and then they are off away and into the chocolates.
I mean, one thing's for sure, it was certainly an unbelievable battle. And I think you're absolutely right. The Dongfeng race team will be able to have a long look in the mirror and see a lot of things that they're going to be able to change going forward. We know that this team can do that. We know that they know how to go fast in this race. And they have come back in this edition of the Volvo Ocean Race even stronger. And leg 3 only proved one thing, that this Volvo Ocean Race is going to come down to nerves of steel. Let's have a look back at leg 3 and how hard Dongfeng race team went all the way to the limit.
Good weather to start a new leg, just in front of Mafre and just behind Brunel.
It's a bit bumpy.
No, definitely not the Southern Ocean. We don't wear sunglasses in the Southern Ocean. It's normally very grey and overcast and a bit colder. This is far too nice. Yeah, it's not bad.
It's quite stressful because you have a lot of noise, you're always afraid to break something.
An unbelievable result, an unbelievable leg, not only for Dongfeng race team, but in fact for all the teams. Charles Cordrelia, though, pushing his crew incredibly hard. And we talk a lot about the moment that Dongfeng race team lost the lead, but it kind of did come down to one moment, one misplaced jibe. And if you were Mafre, there's a lot to celebrate, but no room for complacency at all, because the Chinese-French team are gunning for you.
Absolutely. They know, and they have so much respect for their competitors. And that's one of the things that I've really enjoyed as a spectator watching this race, is watching these two boats punch out ahead of everybody else, and they're always watching, they're always sort of looking for that counter punch. And I think that when Dongfeng race team went into stealth mode, then the Mafre must have had the cold sweats, just wondering when they were going to pop up.
Well, we can actually now ask them that very question. We can talk to the sailors on board Dongfeng race team. I believe we've got Charles Cordrelia on the line. We are looking at the stern camera. Charles, it's Niall and Conrad in Alicante. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Thank you so much for joining us. Whereabouts are you on the boat right now?
Where I am on the boat?
Yes.
I am driving the boat in the channel to the boat.
Ah, we see you on the right-hand side. We're looking at the stern camera. If you could just give all your fans, all your French fans that are up now watching you cross the finish line, watching you conclude leg 3, give us a little bit of a wave. And Charles, please, just tell us, what's it like to go through the Southern Ocean, survive all the trials and tribulations, and finally arrive safe in port?
I have two people who speak to me, so I can't understand anything. Two people are speaking at the same time. And the question is very low, and the other guy is speaking very high, so I can't understand what was the question. Sorry.
Charles, we understand it's a little bit of a tricky line. Just going to try one more time. Please just give us a summary of how you're feeling right now after concluding leg 3.
I think everybody shares the same feeling that we are all exhausted. I think that was one of the toughest leg I never did. Big fight with Mapfre, and to finish a big problem on board. So crazy section of the jibing around the ice limit, maybe 40 times jibing in the cold. So yeah, very, very difficult leg. And a bit disappointing because, again, leading 80% of the time and leave the first place with Mapfre. But some more like to come, and we'll do better.
Charles, I can understand your disappointment having led the leg for so long, but second, still a good result, and the Volvo Ocean Race continues. Many more legs to come.
Yes, exactly. It's a good place, second, but it's like 2 places of second, so it's 2 places of first on Mapfre, which is a good for him. He takes a small advantage in terms of points. So we have to take care because this guy does not make many mistakes, and we know it will be difficult to put both between us and them and the other leg if we want to see if we do better. So yes, each point is important, and I think this team is very strong, and yeah, we know we have to do better for sure.
Charles,
but yes, okay.
No, I'm just going to say, I mean, everybody, all your fans around the world, and of course in China and in France, rooting for the boat. I just wonder if you've got any words that you wish to say to your fans who've supported you all the way through this incredible Southern Ocean leg. Anything you want to say to them in French?
Right, good. I'm not finished. Sorry. Yeah, so to the fans, of course, it's important. We receive on board some messages, and it's very nice to see how people like the team and want the team to do well. So, and in the tough moment, it's really good to read that. And thank you very much for us. We need your support because the race is going to be long, and sometimes you have some low and big lows in this race. And this is where sometimes just a small message. Yeah, there is so much people behind us and who want us to do well, and who will be sad if we don't do it. So we have to push more and think about this guy and forget about the difficult moment. And it's great. It's so difficult. So it's very important for fun to have people follow you working.
Charles, thank you so much for taking the time to talk to us. Congratulations on completing this leg. Welcome to Melbourne, and we look very, very happily to the future and how hard you are going to push Mapfre on the next leg. Good luck.
Yeah, we'll push everybody on each leg, and the next one is an important one for us because we are going to China. So we have to do well as last time. It would be fantastic for
Well, Conrad, I mean, not only do our sailors get a little bit of a pounding, but the media equipment as well. Apologise for the drop in connection there. We are linking to them from Volvo Ocean Race headquarters. They are on the other side of the planet. Conrad, we're just going to come off air in a minute, but I just want to ask you one quick thing. You know Charles Quadrelia pretty well. I mean, he's wearing that on his chest, and he's not hiding anything back. Disappointed with a second.
Yes, absolutely. And remember, this is somebody who has won the Volvo Ocean Race already. He's won the Solitaire de Figaro, one of the most prestigious sailing events in France, where he grew up sailing. Excuse me. And so, as I said, they're here to win, and nothing else is going to be good enough. And yeah, he's one of the few people in the world that can be disappointed and clearly demonstrate that that disappointment about a second place in the Volvo Ocean Race. Almost anybody else would be delighted by that. But just to put that in perspective briefly, Mapfre is now on 29 points. As we just said, the Dongfeng race team is now tied on 23. So to make up those 6 points that are now separating them, well, there's a lot of work required to do that. If you count the bonus points, if, for example, Dongfeng race team wins a leg and then Mafre is second, then they get 2 points, right? Because you get one difference for being first, and then also another one for the bonus point. So in order to make up that gap, they need to put Mafre behind them 3 times in a row, or at least the next 2 legs plus the Southern Ocean leg. So they're going to have to beat Mafre every single time between now and Itajai before they can get that lead back. So clearly a lot of work ahead of them. Charles is very aware of the fact that there's a lot of work to be done, but there's also a lot of miles to be done, miles ahead of them that will allow them to take that battle to them.
And if you're a fan of the Chinese-French boat, you will be pleased to know that the Dongfeng race team are in no way backing off. You could hear it in his voice. And another boat that is pushing very hard right now, Vestas, 11th Hour Racing. They have managed to hold their lead over Team Brunel. And we are going to take a short break, but we will be back. Vestas, 11th Hour Racing, due to cross the finish line at around 2200 UTC. And we are going to be there showing you that moment and having reactions from the sailors. We will see you there. We're going to leave you now. We're going to play you out with leg overall highlights for what has been an unbelievable journey through the Southern Ocean.
Cape Town conditions here, got a beautiful southeaster, 25 knots. This is going to be good. Hold on to your hats.
Offshore with some big waves and 40 knots, so it's a bit complicated, upwind with some tacks to do.
We have to cross a ridge. So a ridge is always difficult to cross because this is a transition between 2 winds.
You know, I think we've closed quite a lot on the leaders here. It's been a little good move for us.
So it's the calm before the storm. We've got about 24 hours before we know the wind's going to start building and we get our first really big depression that is going to pack a punch.
Beautiful Southern Ocean.
Into the Southern Ocean. This is where the fun begins.
We had a jibe on in pretty hard conditions, 35 knots, 40. The main slamming over on the runners, breaking the battens. The worst part is we've pulled the track off the back of the mast.
We're having a big battle here with Dongfeng. The last 2-3 days been just a little bit crazy with so many jibes going on in the exclusion zone.
Welcome to the Melbourne arrivals. We're watching Vestas 11th Hour Racing, closing down on the finish line to conclude leg 3, the Southern Ocean leg. We've already seen Mafre take the win and Dongfeng race team take second. The Chinese-French team, just a little way ahead of Vestas 11th Hour Racing, has cleared the final bridge and they are making their way onto the dock, and we are hoping to bring you the moment where they finally set foot ashore. But we have right now sent the helicopter out in the water to chase Vestas 11th Hour Racing. And simultaneously, right now, at this moment, as Vestas 11th Hour Racing approaches the finish line, the Chinese-French team have now reached the dock. Just a few moments ago, we were speaking to the skipper, Charles Quadrelia, and Conrad Coleman. I mean, you were here. This team will be happy to be ashore, but they're not happy with that second place.
No, not at all. This is a team with very, very high ambitions that they are chasing the #1 spot on the podium, and it's kind of heartbreaking that they've sailed 6,500 miles. They got second place on this incredible leg. They knocked out over 100 jibes in strong conditions, and they are grumpy about it. It's as a sailor, you know, that what happens out there at sea, well, you know, you can be disappointed with it, but once you get there and you can see your husband or wife waiting there for you, finally, okay, I'm satisfied now because I have seen a smile on the face of skipper Charles Cordelier. He takes this very, very seriously. He's here to win. He got second place. Last time we spoke to him, he was a little bit disappointed. Now, he seems to be happy to be at the dock.
And we're going to be hearing from the sailors in just a moment. We've got the reporters on the dock side, so and one more final buffer between the teams and that shower that they have been looking forward to for days, I'm sure. And we'll be hearing from them in just a moment, but let's just jump back now. Vestas 11th Hour Racing, Charlie Enright and Mark Towell's team approaching the finish line. And, you know, it was interesting. We were seeing onboard footage earlier. We had the helicopter moving around the boat, and we could really see the facial expressions on board. It's a stark contrast on board this boat as they approach the finish line compared to the Chinese-French team.
That really is. That's something that we've talked about a lot already in this race, is the fact that this team is incredibly upbeat. I don't know if that comes down to the American optimism on board, but clearly the leaders, as you said, with Mark and Charlie on board, they're doing something different.
Congratulations, Charles. Congratulations and welcome to Melbourne. How did now Southern Ocean? You're now in second place. How do you feel now that you're in second place for this series?
Oh, very happy. Of course, a bit disappointed because for the second time we were leading the leg 80% of the time and Mafre passed us, but. Yeah, no, we're very happy. It's not about the result, especially after all the trouble we have last night with the keel, which has been broken. So, the ram of the keel. So, if it had happened a few days before, it would have been a disaster for us. So, I think we can be happy to finish second here.
In the Southern Ocean, have you had such a battle before? You know, the Southern Ocean being so treacherous, and it was a big battle. Was it exhausting? Huh?
Yeah, probably the most exhausted leg I did in my life because of the ice limit. Now we have a big ice limit and we have to jibe, and we have spent, I think we have done maybe 40 jibes fighting with Mafre, and it was really, really hard. And Mafre push a lot to come back, and push us to be faster each time and push more and more. And it was really hard until the end. And of course it's cold, it's wet, and it was very windy also. It never stopped. Full of water off the deck every day, every minute. So yes, it was a very difficult one, I think.
Congratulations in being in second place. Thank you, Charles.
Oh, Charles Cordrelia just giving us his reactions as he hit the dock, but we are now bringing you pictures of Vestas 11th Hour Racing crossing through the finish line. The hard work is done. It is third place for Charlie Enright and Mark Towell's team. Vestas 11th Hour Racing puts the Southern Ocean to bed, at least for now. Well, Conrad, you were talking about the atmosphere on board this team. It was smiles as they approached the line. We even saw some Santa hats and some Christmas jumpers, and now hugs around. And, you know, Charlie Enright was talking themselves really strongly going into this race, talking about their chances. And so far, they haven't let up. You know, they were really firing on all cylinders in the first leg. And now, again, another strong result.
Well, let's talk about the fact that this has been basically a copy and paste from League 2 all the way to Cape Town. In fact, so first, second, third, same position. But what this means is that for this team that was kind of a little bit underneath the radar going into the race, it's 3 times on the podium, twice third, and 1 win. That means that they're tied for second place. So for a team that in some ways was not rated too highly going into the race, well, they're a pretty solid second equal, and they're in great shape. You know, Simon Fisher, an incredibly experienced navigator. You've got the core team from Alvamedica back for their second time this time, and just their culture on board has really, really impressed me, and I think that they're only going to get stronger as this race goes on.
Well, we understand now we've got co-founder of the team, Mark Towell, on the line. Mark, it's Niall in Alicante. Can you hear me? We're just having a look.
Can you hear me?
Mark, we've got you. There's a little bit of a delay on the line, but first of all, Merry Christmas and congratulations. A 3rd place on leg 3. How are you feeling?
Yeah, it was a tough leg. You know, we're happy to be here, happy to be on the podium again, and you know, I think sorry, we got a lot of sales and stuff coming down right now, but it's great to be here. It's nice to be in on Christmas, and I think everybody's looking forward to getting to the dock and getting a shower. It was a challenging leg on the boat and on the bodies, but everybody held together well, and we're happy with the result.
I've got to say, it's very nice to see that all the brutality of the Southern Ocean hasn't taken away the Christmas cheer on your boat. Santa hats and Christmas jumpers as well.
Yeah, we've had a couple of little Christmas gifts that have snuck their way on, and some nice welcome videos from our friends and families, and also from Vestas and our racing. So it was a nice treat to have this morning.
It's fairly safe to say that you guys fared pretty well in the brutal conditions that we've been seeing over the last 2 weeks. And also that final sprint into Melbourne. I mean, you almost had a shot at Dongfeng race team.
Yeah, it was looking pretty close. I think that they were always a little bit ahead. You know, from the tracker standpoint, it probably looked tighter, but they were winding into the lift and the high, and they were in a comfortable position. But there was definitely some compression there at the end, and you know, Brunel also sailed really well. Credit to them, and you know, I think I'm not sure exactly what's happening on all the other boats, but I'm sure everybody had their moments. It was definitely some challenging conditions, and I think we're all feeling happy to be here and in one piece.
Oh, Mark, we're just wondering if it was possible to speak to possibly Charlie Enright. We can see him working quite hard on the wheel. Maybe if you could pass the headset over and relieve him on the steering.
I can do that. Hang on. Let me talk to you. Hey guys. Charlie's just driving the boat backwards right now. We're trying to get the sails down, but how would you like to talk to Stacey or Tom, one of our local Australians?
Oh, that would be fantastic. Either of those two. We can see how hard you guys are working. I'll let you choose.
Okay, cool. Hey, Stacey, you want to talk to these guys?
Rather interesting at this point. Normally when we start asking for sailors to take a turn out of the workload on the boat, they're normally very quick to volunteer, but right now everybody wanting to get that boat in as quickly as possible.
Yeah, exactly. It's just it becomes organised chaos straight after the race finishes.
Hello, Stacey. It is Niall in Alicante. Congratulations on a well-fought 3rd place in this leg.
Yeah, thanks very much. Definitely a big fight to get here. You know, it was a really tough 2 weeks at sea. I have to say, a couple of days ago we all sort of decided that it would be nice just to get to Melbourne and have it be over.
And to come into Australia in the sunshine, I mean, what does that mean for you to sail into home waters?
Yeah, exactly. Well, this is the first time that I've sailed into Australia out of this being my second race. So that's pretty cool. You know, to come home, it's you know, this is a long way from my home as such, but it's the culture, it's the you know, it's everything that I know and what I call home. So really happy to be here, and this is actually my second time to Melbourne, and both times I arrived by boat, so it's pretty cool.
And as you say, you've done the Volvo Ocean Race before with Team SCA. I mean, this time round, the Southern Ocean, was it what you expected, or did it pack an extra special punch?
Yeah, actually, this time in the Southern Ocean, it was tough. I think last race we might have got it a little easy. We had a bad run in the Southern Ocean last race, but this time it was intense. It was windy, it was wet and cold the whole time. It never really gave up on us. So somewhat harder than I expected it to be. But it's the Southern Ocean. It doesn't, you know, you can't take its reputation lightly, and I think it really proved its worth this week.
All right, Stacey, we know we've pulled you away from the work that's going on deck. We're going to let you get on with it. Thank you very much for taking the time out, and congratulations.
Yeah, thanks very much, and look forward to seeing everyone on the dock when we get in.
Well, Conrad, there we go. A special moment for the sailors on board. Stacey Jackson sailing into home waters, and there's almost a sense of, you know, welcoming in the rest of the team into your own country.
Well, yeah, that's one of the things that's really special about not only sailing around the world or across an ocean. You start in one country with one culture, with one language. Yeah, it is actually a distinct language between South Africa and Australia. It's not just the accent, they've got entirely different languages, such strange derivations of English. But it's incredibly satisfying. It really sort of drives home the point that you've done something incredible. You've gone from point A to point B. When you arrive somewhere else, and I know that you know, we're all part of the jet set now. We fly around the world regularly on Airbuses and 747s, but to do that on a sailboat and to start somewhere and finish up somewhere else is really something quite special. And it will be the responsibility of Stacey Jackson, even though she's not from Melbourne, to take all of her Danish-American team and show them a bit of the sights and sounds waiting for them there in Australia. Now, bit of a change for her. Normally, around this time she'll be warming up for the Sydney Hobart race. It's a race that she's done 11 times, and so I think it's going to be an exciting opportunity for the sailors here in the Volvo Ocean Race to come home, get their feet up, and watch some ocean racing on the telly.
And incredible to see the Santa hat on display there. Jeremiah Hansen, one of the crew members, proudly sporting the Santa hat. And to give you just some idea as to why it is that they look so happy to have the Southern Ocean behind them, at least for now, let's take a look back at just how hard they had to sail.
I'm tired of being sad, I'm lonely. I'm tired of trying not to think of you. Been too long since I've raised these hands. I'm tired of having something to prove. Another day on the daily dole. Another day in unemployment lines. Keep asking me how I'm doing.
It's tough saying goodbye to the family, but once you're out here, there's not much time for nerves, to be honest.
Voices on a final ride. I'm tired of always sitting back, waiting for the seventh seal to crack. First class is something big to hit.
So far, so good. We are prepared. We got 10 knots to go.
My cloak for swords.
Sad because I feel like Santa will never find us out here. Santa will never find us.
You won't know where we are because we'll be always on the move, Yana.
Yeah.
Wet, wild, and extremely cold for the teams out there in the Southern Ocean. And now, as Vestas 11th Hour Racing have crossed the line and confirmed that third place, let's have another little look at the scores. Remember, this is the projected overall. We still have 4 teams to finish. But Conrad, we mentioned this already this evening, Mafre sailing very nicely, and now a bit of a two-way battle for that second, third spot.
Well, yeah, as I pointed out earlier, there is a big jump for Dongfeng Race Team and indeed Vestas 11th Hour Racing to try and dethrone the Spanish kings of this edition of the Volvo Ocean Race. 6 points, crucially separating first from second and third, equal, but then you need to look back from 23 to 14 places. You can really see who the strong favourites are at this point. Those top 3 boats are so punched out from everybody else that anybody else out on the water is really going to struggle at this point, even after only 3 legs of the race sailed, to putting those top boats under pressure at this point. So the reason that Dongfeng Race Team there was second is because even though the points are equal on countback, including this last leg, because Dongfeng Race Team beat 11th Hour Racing into this leg, Melbourne here, that puts them on top, even though they've got equal points.
And well, there is a lot more race to go. We know we're going to be talking so much about the results and how it affects everything. We've got double points, we've got the elapsed time wins, we've got so much still to go. And those teams at the back are certainly going to be pushing for every little advantage they can find. It's been an unbelievable leg 3. 3 teams now completed, but don't forget there are 4 to go. We've got around about 90 minutes to go before we'll see Team Brunel across the finish line. Plus, we're going to be there, hopefully, and for the moment when Vestas 11th Hour Racing reach the dock and get reunited with their supporters on the shore. So you are going to be wanting to stay tuned, and we're going to leave you now with what an unbelievable set of images and incredible dramas that we have seen throughout this leg, and we will be back with you in just a few moments.
Cape Town conditions here, got a beautiful southeaster, 25 knots. This is going to be good. Hold on to your hats.
Offshore with some big waves and 40 knots, so it's a bit complicated. Upwind with some tacks to do.
We have to cross a ridge. So a ridge is always difficult to cross because this is a transition between 2 winds.
You know, I think we've closed quite a lot on the leaders here. It's been a little good move for us.
So it's the calm before the storm. We've got about 24 hours before we know the wind's going to start building and we get our first really big depression that is going to pack a punch.
Beautiful Southern Ocean!
Into the Southern Ocean. This is where the fun begins.
We had a jibe on in pretty hard conditions, 35 knots, 40. The main slamming over on the runners, breaking the battens. The worst part is we've pulled the track off the back of the mast.
We're having a big battle here with Dongfeng. The last 2-3 days been just a little bit crazy with so many jibes going on in the exclusion zone.
Welcome to Volvo Ocean Race headquarters here in Alicante. We have been ticking off the finishes of leg 3. With me, as always, is Conrad Coleman, and we have got some unbelievable footage coming in now live from Melbourne. We have got the helicopter out there following Team Brunel, and Bauer Becking's boat is inching ever closer to this finish line to conclude what has been an unbelievable leg. We've seen Mafre finish, they claimed first. Dongfeng race team took second, and disappointment on the face of Charles Cordrelia. He knows how much these points will matter as the race continues. In third place was Vestas 11th Hour Racing, and lastly, Charlie Enright and Mark Towell acknowledged that Bauer Becking's boat here, they really put the pressure on Vestas 11th Hour Racing into the finish. And now we can see Team Brunel. There's the finish line on the virtual tracker. The Team Brunel jibe completed 15 knots. We expect them to close this distance down in around about 10 to 15 minutes before they cross the finish line. So we're going to have a little bit of a look at what they've done and how they've sailed so well. And, you know, Conrad, let's wind the clock back a little bit in our minds here, because Team Brunel, leg 1, really underperforming. They made a few changes in Lisbon, got some changes with their rudders.
Most notably.
And now in this leg, up to speed. Yes, they're not on the podium, but they're only just missing out.
They're only just missing out, and as you said, they really gave Vestas 11th Hour Racing a bit of a scare as they approached there. They're very, very different options and that they played throughout the course of this leg, often splitting away from the rest of the fleet. What did they change for this fleet? Well, little by little, they're getting their America's Cup sailors, turning them, well, I was going to say something derogatory. I'm going to avoid saying that. But anyway, taking people that are used to going home at night and sleeping in a bed to proper hairy-chested offshore sailors that dealt with the full brunt of the Indian Ocean, sea at 5 degrees and constant and quite dangerous, as we saw spray in Lush, for example.
Well, I was just actually looking out for Annie Lush there. We just saw a moment ago live images from the stern camera. We do have the helicopter and we have a chase rib out there to meet the boat as well on that final short approach to the finish line. Annie Lush, if you haven't been following the final few days, Annie Lush had got knocked over by a wave. It wasn't the wave itself, it was how she landed. It was just poor luck, really, that she took an impact on her back, and this laid her up pretty badly. She has some loss of feeling in her legs. However, big relief from everybody, not just fans of Team Brunel, when she came back on deck even, was starting to help around. And I'm just looking, the images very clear today actually as the sun is up, and we were welcoming in some of these boats into Melbourne in the darkness. I'm just wondering whether that is Annie Lush forward left, but not too sure yet. We will wait to find out. Bauer Becking at the back, leaning very casually against the steering system. And look at that, masthead code 0, J3, absolutely pounding along, 15 knots the boat was doing earlier, and I'm sure they're just counting down the seconds before they can cross the finish line. And down, chasing them along the water, we have got Nick Bice, the manager for the Volvo Ocean Race Boatyard. Nick, great to see Team Brunel coming in, just missing out with Vestas 11th Hour Racing.
Bauer and his team come through the finish line. They've had a marvellous leg, very fast leg. All the boats have been extremely fast. 14 days. I mean, this is going to go down in the record books as one of the fastest ever, and nothing can be taken away from any of these teams. They've done a marvellous job, and looking forward to seeing Bauer and the boys come across the line. And I actually, in the rib here, I have a flag to give them for the 24-hour record for this leg. So they've pushed this boat, and we expect them here in probably 10 to 15 minutes.
And Nick, from where you are on the finish line, the conditions right now, they look superb for that final sprint in.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we were out here earlier with Matt Frey and we had a bit of a tide against wind situation, so some very steep waves. It's flattened out quite nicely now, so the boats can actually sail very fast into the finish line. Probably not as much breeze as we had early this morning with Dongfeng, but still plenty of breeze nonetheless. Currently 16 to 18 knots, I would say.
And Nick, while we've got you here and we're following Team Brunel into the finish line, you've got this role as boatyard manager. Melbourne, a short stopover. What is it that the boats are going to go through before the start of the next leg?
Yeah, it's the pressure is on the guys here. We've only got a very short turnaround to get the boats back mended and back ready for the leg from Melbourne to Hong Kong. We've seen a few incidents out here on the water, one of which being the main one being AXA Nobel with their mast track situation, and then of course the other one being Dongfeng, which actually broke a keel hydraulic cylinder, which is pretty unheard of and definitely unheard of since my time in the race. But from our point of view, we want to ensure that these boats are 100% safe, 100% reliable for the next leg to Hong Kong. And we have enough spares on site, enough technicians on site to ensure that these boats are 100% in the leg from the fourth leg from Melbourne to Hong Kong.
And Nick, is this leg going to be the toughest test for the equipment? I mean, there's plenty more miles ahead of them.
I mean, these teams have copped an absolute battering. Some of the teams I've just spoken to this morning, I mean, they in their own words, they were pretty loose for quite many days there, and possibly some of the best ever sailing that they've ever done. It's freezing cold, they can't see anything, they're dripping wet, but it's the best sailing they've ever done, and they won't forget this for a long time.
Oh, thank you, Nick. We will check back in with you in a few moments as Team Brunel get a little closer to the finish line. Well, Conrad, I mean, this is something that we can't really overtalk, can we? The Southern Ocean leg, I mean, it really does make you a ocean sailor. We know we're going to go down into these waters again as the Volvo Ocean Race continues. A lot of lessons surely learned.
Yeah, it's interesting to hear that from Nick. He's somebody who sailed this leg himself, indeed in 2005, and to hear the sailors themselves say that this is some of the toughest, roughest the conditions that they've ever been in is pretty impressive, particularly when you consider that the man standing on the helm right now, as that looks like they're going to be rolling into a jibe shortly, is Bauer Beck, and he's here on his 8th Volvo Ocean Race. And so if he was impressed about the sort of spicy conditions that they were facing out there, then it says a lot, because he has seen and done it all. And it's also a testament to two other things that we're seeing in this edition of the Volvo Ocean Race. That is the return of the Volvo Ocean 65. So these are it's the second time round the world for these boats. There's one far designed boats that were introduced in the last edition of the race. Most notably put through an incredible service by Nick Bice's team. Big grind on as they get that masthead code 0 through, and then you can see the skyscrapers of the Melbourne downtown in front of them. So nice jibe there. They've certainly made it through so many of those maneuvers, just unfurling the J3 there. That often they furl up the staysail so that they can just focus on the big sail at the front of the boat. So anyway, so it validates the idea of taking a race boat around the world again. It validates the idea of the boatyard that Nick has been looking after to get the boats in that spectacular, immaculate racing condition. And also it validates the return to the Volvo Ocean Race into the Southern Ocean. The last two editions of the race have been turning left after Cape Town and heading up to Abu Dhabi. This time round, they are back into the Indian Ocean, and brutal conditions. You know, you don't need to have icebergs and snowmen on the deck in order to have a wild ride. Clearly, They came looking for some adventure and they got a boatload.
And it's incredible to see them perform that jibe. If you're wondering, that was just about the easiest conditions that they will have done a jibe this entire leg. Leg 3, not only for Team Brunel, but for all the teams. Unbelievably tough. Let's have a look back at leg 3 from the point of view of these sailors here. We're going to bring that in just a moment. We're just getting shots on board now. Peter Burling, now this is a man that needs very little introduction, but important to point out here, bare feet on deck. This will be incredibly welcome after you've basically been living in your wet kit and your wet boots just the entire time.
Yeah, for sure. And if they've only got 2 changes of underpants, and you know, they've now been at sea for 14 days, 11 hours and 21 minutes, and they have changed their underpants once. So probably going to be a little bit spicy when they finally make it to the dock, but anyway, back to you now.
Well, we have just got now live images of this boat making their way towards the finish line. We are getting close to seeing Team Brunel cross the finish. A few minutes to go. So before we see them safely conclude this leg in Melbourne, let's have a look at what leg 3 was like for them.
It is cold. The aggression of the front passage is crazy sometimes. But especially the pressure of the wind. It's a real team sport. History just shows that this is the leg where the most damage occurs.
Enjoying what Melbourne's got to offer.
Well, it's not only spectators in ribs that have sailed out onto the water to join the teams, also a Musto skiff dinghy, quite a punchy boat itself, being dwarfed though by the Volvo Ocean 65 Team Brunel as they close down on that finish line. Now, we can see in the background, you've got the red tanker and the city skyline. Between those two, that is roughly where the finish line will be. A short while ago, we saw the Dutch team perform a jibe. By my eye, they might have one more to go. We'll have to have a look at the computer tracker just to get confirmation of that in a few moments. But certainly, great breeze. And what a relief, because when you consider some of the leg finishes that we've been dealing with, the last 2 legs, it's been light winds, it's been park-ups, no such problems here.
No, it's been pretty stable breeze out there, and they've been really enjoying the conditions. And actually, it's quite nice having this entry into the bay by Melbourne, because after sort of squeaking in through the quite a tight tight entrance in past through the breakwater and the heads, that most notably we saw the helicopter images from Mafre there earlier this morning, European time. Once they get in there, well, they've made it out of the Southern Ocean for real. They're in sheltered water, and there's basically a nice cruise to the finish. You know, 40, 50 miles downwind, couple of jibes. You know, sure, they're still pushing hard because, as we have mentioned before, the elapsed time is still something that's important. It's one extra point that is given to the boat that has sailed around the world in the least amount of time overall. And so, even though they're not on the podium this time, time is still ticking, and they're conscious about that, but there's no pressure behind. They can't change anything, but ahead. So frankly, I think this is going to be just a nice sail, and for the Australians on board, they're going to be really looking forward to being in home waters again, even more than everybody else.
Well, Andrew Cape, one of the key members of this team, an Australian himself, and I think we're just getting audio from the boat right now. I believe they've probably just gone past the Musto skiff, the small dinghy that was out there to wish them well as they were coming through. These are live images right now of Team Brunel sailing into Melbourne. We are in Volvo Ocean Race headquarters in Alicante, pretty much the other side of the planet, but these images are being beamed over. And I think they're just waving at the sailor that's come out to wish them well at the moment. And very nice to see some smiles on board this boat. They came into the Volvo Ocean Race with ambitions that were higher than the race results that they're getting right now. Certainly from the first leg. I mean, they really struggled in that leg. But there's an awful lot to feel positive about if you're on board this team.
Well, yeah, absolutely. They've been getting stronger as they go from leg to leg. And remember, this is one of the boats that entered extremely late, so midway through the summer, finally. They got their campaign fully wound up and ready to make it to the start line. They did leg 0 in many cases without their full race crew on board. Bauer-Becking picked up half of his crew just after the America's Cup, and so they've really had a bit of a mountain to climb in order to get this team together, get the crew on the boat, figure out how to sail it, how to use the experience from Bauer-Becking and transfer that over to his new guys on board. And so I think that this is a team that's getting stronger. They've got a lot of experience, obviously, with Bauer-Becking and Andrew Cape, the Australian navigator. So sure, you know, I think that they're still getting to grips with it and learning how to push hard. But as we'll see now, we're going to talk about the 24-hour speed record.
Yeah, absolutely. Team Brunel, as Nick Bice was just mentioning a moment ago, the 24-hour speed record, you know, the recognition awaiting for this boat, 538.1 nautical miles, completed in 24 hours. An impressive number, a little shy of the overall. I think that was 550 by Abu Dhabi Ocean Racing. If I'm wrong on that, please correct me in the comments below. But Bauer-Becking certainly knows that he can make this boat go fast. And one person that knows all about the 65 is Nick Bice. Nick, Bauer taking Brunel in. A very happy moment here for Dutch fans.
Oh yeah, everyone on board must be extremely happy. And I can see Cole Langford, the Australian, going to be helming the boat across the finish line, and there's no prouder honour to sail your Volvo Ocean Race boat across your home finish line in your home country. So good on Cole. I was lucky enough to do it in 2005 on ABN AMRO 2 when we actually got the world 24-hour record. They didn't quite get the world 24-hour record this time, but they have had this boat absolutely wrung out. From what I'm looking at now, though, the boat looks to be in very, very good condition. So kudos to the team. They look after it very well. Abby Ayler on board, of course, being the boat captain. We definitely know the boat is in good hands if she has anything to do with it.
And Nick, by RI here in Alicante, we're thinking they're about 1 mile and maybe a jibe to go to the finish. How does it look from where you are?
Yeah, I'd say it's not more than 1 mile. They're getting little lifts and little knocks as we go down here, so I wouldn't be surprised if they actually just soak down to the finish. They're not looking for the seconds or the minutes just here, so I wouldn't be surprised if they just take it a little bit easy and just soak it down to the finish and get through in one piece, one less manoeuvre. And I'm pretty sure we're going to see some pretty big smiles coming from on board soon. Especially I can just see Andrew Cape right now pointing to where the marker is, indicating that they're probably just below it. Andrew would be very happy to be, of course, coming across the finish line in Melbourne, as also being from Australia, a current resident of the UK.
Oh, thank you, Nick. We are just watching helicopter images now, and you know, Conrad, that looks absolutely perfect conditions, and I can't imagine how relieving it is to finish off the Southern Ocean leg when you've been having to fight so hard, not to make the boat go fast, but to keep it under control. And here it's just, well, hammer down. This is just great. We got this one in the bag.
Got this one in the bag, and it's a beautiful day. Remember, well, no need to remind you, Christmas morning here in Melbourne, and you've got that beautiful Melbourne skyline just in front of you there as you sort of pop on your Christmas hat. Looks like maybe looking here, Annie Lush there. So the newly recovered, hopefully, Annie Lush with her British flag there. And her sunny temperament and and her festive Christmas hat. So I'm really hoping that that Annie can get fully signed off by the team physio. She'll probably be under their thumbs getting a massage and her back checked out. You can just imagine how scary it must have been to be stuck out in the middle of the ocean, to be thrown backwards against the lifelines, still staying on board the boat, but then to be bedbound. So this is going to be great for her.
Now we're just seeing a little bit of action on the deck, all the crew going to the pump. So I think we're coming into potentially a jibe here. The J3 just looked like it got furled. Conrad, just talk us through this jibe.
All right, well, previously they had the J3 set up as a stay sail, so that's a heavy air upwind sail, but it's pretty much always used inside these bigger reaching sails, but kind of like a turbo. That by having all the sails at the front of the boat stacked up like that, then it adds more power and helps the mainsail work a little bit better as well. So you can see a big ease on the masthead code 0 there as they approach the marker posts. Sort of hard to know which way it's going to go at this point. Maybe they're going to jibe, or maybe, as Nick Bice was saying, they're just going to do a big ease on that sail and squeak it in.
And it could be that we go for the jibe. It could be, as you say, we go for this bear away. Who better to ask than Nick Bice down there on the water as Team Brunel start getting very near to that final line cross in leg 3.
Yeah, not long now, guys. We've just a few hundred metres away here. Looks as though they are a bit above the ley line here. They've just been lifted in these last few minutes. So they are getting prepared for some sort of a manoeuvre here, and they'll be heading through on port jibe, I would imagine. The breeze has dropped just a little as we're getting into the mouth of the river also, but I tell you what, they're going to have some very big smiles on their faces. And here we go, they're just rolling into a jibe now, and they'll be able to make it through on this jibe. So well done to Team Brunel. Only got a couple of 100 metres now, and I tell you what, Bauer Becking will be very proud of his crew and what they've achieved here. All 4 boats have been now within 6 hours of each other. I mean, it's phenomenal. It's fantastic.
Well, Nick, from our view on the helicopter, I think we're seeing the furthest end of the finish line, the yellow mark, and then the other end is the pier. So we are getting close to that final moment when they cross the finish line. How far away are they now?
They are currently around 200 metres from the finish line now. And as you said, it's between that little yellow bird, I'm sure, by the helicopter. Now I think just having a little bit of fun there. He's just down.
Well, we're just going to come back to Nick. He's putting the hammer down and keeping up with Team Brunel as they approach this finish line. As Nick was saying, that yellow mark that you can just see going past the mast of Team Brunel a moment ago, that is the other end of the line. This could be them bearing away now to go through the finish line. The J3 is back out as a stay sail. Team Brunel moments away from concluding this leg. The bowman's going forward. There's the handshakes. Carl Langford at the back to congratulate the rest of the crew. And now the big masthead 0 gets furled. It's so heartbreaking to see these sailors almost having no time to congratulate each other before the realization that, well, there's still work to do.
Still work to do, particularly here in Melbourne. I'm not sure if if you've been able to catch up on the videos that we've been putting out. But just to be clear, they need to furl away the big masthead code 0, the J3. They need to drop down that massive square top mainsail. They need to motor their way up the river and then haul the boat down over onto its side manually. So that's one last workout that is waiting in store for these tired sailors who have set the 24-hour speed record on this leg of 538 miles. And then they need to drag the boat underneath a bridge that is otherwise too low to let the boats through before they finally make it into the dock and see their family and friends.
I've got to say, it's rather nice to see Carl Langford and Peter Burling working on the same pedestal at the back. Remember, these two were on opposite boats on the America's Cup. Peter Burling getting the better of Carl Langford, and now on the same team, and I'm sure all of that is very far behind them because they've got a lot of race left to go. This is leg 3. We've still got many a battle yet to play out in the Volvo Ocean Race. Team Brunel, a big name in the Volvo Ocean Race. Bauer Becking, a huge skipper, with a strong reputation. This is his 8th Volvo Ocean Race, but yet still slightly under firing. There is more to come from this team. Mark my words, we have not seen the best of Team Brunel yet. Andrew Kate, the navigator, very strong indeed on board. And one other name that's just interesting to point out here, because we have seen a little bit of a change with the crew. Louis Balkeen jumped on board for this leg, and going into this edition of the Volvo Ocean Race, Team Brunel, it was important to note that it was almost a new team, completely different from the last edition. Now, Louis Balkeen jumps back on board, maybe Bauer Becking realising that he's got some old friends he can rely upon.
Well, yeah, could be. He's probably got plenty of old friends. Remember, he's been around the block a few times, and he probably knows and indeed has sailed with most of the people that he's competing against now on the other boats. But you're exactly right. It's interesting to see that he did bring in his his under 30 sailor from the last edition, to sail with him again. Clearly, when his previous crew member stepped off, he was looking for some experience, somebody that he already had an existing connection with. And when you've got a last-minute crew change like that, it is so crucial to be able to call up somebody that you know, that you already respect, and that you know can just sort of step on and go.
Well, Bauer Becking on the helm, as you say, a very experienced Volvo Ocean Race sailor. And earlier on, Conrad, I was asking you about, or putting you on the spot really, a little bit of a question just to ask you the last time that the Volvo Ocean Race came to Melbourne. Who was the winning skipper? Well, Conrad wasn't too sure, I wasn't too sure, but you guys provided the answer in the comments, and I got to say, we did check it out. And it was, of course, Mike Sanderson. But the second question, well, not for Conrad, because I know that he knows this one, but for you guys watching at home, in that edition of the Volvo Ocean Race, the last time that we saw Melbourne as a stopover, Bauer Becking was here racing. He was in that edition. But the question is, how did his campaign end? If you know, put it in the comments below. And we're watching the proud man there on the left-hand side of your screen, helming the boat on the way in as the rest of the crew get themselves ready for packing the sails down, even though they're now safely through the finish line, still with a few handshakes and congratulations to go. Alberto Bolzan in the foreground there, and Annie Lush taking off her Santa's hat, so good to see her up on deck contributing, hopefully onto a good recovery. But even though they've come through the finish line, still a good few miles to go before they get onto dry land. Carl Langford standing up at the back. Just talk us through what we're seeing here with the halyard on the end of the boom.
Well, yes, what they've done there is they've taken one of the halyards from the front of the mast, so one of the foresail halyards, and they've dragged it all the way around the outside of the spreaders, all the way to the back of the boat. And the reason that they do that is they need to secure the boom horizontally so that it doesn't fall onto the deck when they start dropping the mainsail down. They don't have a solid vang that otherwise would hold up the boom like some kind of boats do. This is a soft textile vang And for those of you that don't know, the vang is the cable that holds the boom down horizontally when you're sailing off the wind, and the main sheet is no longer really pulling down but more out to the side. So it's basically to stop what happened at the end of the first leg when the boom fell down and actually hurt navigator Steve Hales on board Sohunkai Scallywag. So it allows them to control in a really controlled manner, so that they can take the pressure off the sail, drop it down, and then flake it onto the boom.
And I'm loving seeing these images right now, because this to me looks like a Sunday sailor going out there, coming back in from a race. The ropes are getting coiled up. The sailors are quite happy. They've had a fun day on the water, smiles all around. And look at Louis Balkeen. I think that is in the yellow high-fit trousers on your right-hand side, making sure that those sheets are coiled correctly. We know that Abby Ehler, the boat captain on this boat, is very well regarded. And I'm sure if Louis Balkeen doesn't think he needs to coil those rightly before, he certainly does now. Because this boat, as Nick Bice was saying, it's well looked after.
Incredibly well looked after. After 6,500 miles of going absolute hammer and tongs all the way through the Indian Ocean, to be able to make it back to Melbourne in such good condition, not even the stickers are peeling off. This boat looks like it's, as you say, just been out for the afternoon.
And with a one design nature of racing as well, looking after your equipment, I mean, to a certain extent, it almost becomes more important, does it? Because you start off with a level playing field. If you don't look after it, the only way you can go is backwards.
You're exactly right, and that indeed is one of the reasons that Ian Walker credited his team with such a dominant success last time round. Remember, in the last edition of the race, 14-15, Abu Dhabi Ocean Racing, skippered by then three-time Volvo Ocean Race sailor Ian Walker, took great pains to look after the one suit of sails that they had all the way around the world. And most notably, when they left Cape Town on this leg last time round, most of the sailors were sailing with one reef in the main in the J2, and they were flogging their way around around the bay, around Robben Island basically. Most notably, Ian Walker with his team took the conservative approach. They sailed well within the bounds of their team. They had another reef in the main. They were sailing with the J3, and they did not lose any miles at all as a result. So you've got to be looking not only about the fact that where you are finishing the race at the end of leg 3, but the fact that we've got so many more miles to do, and these are the only sails that they have to get them around the racecourse. And so they're going to be looking for maintaining the boat in tip-top condition, certainly the sails, which is the engine of the boat, so that, for example, when they're sailing upwind along the Argentinian and Brazilian coast, they've got perfect shape again, and they can attack later on in the race.
And because there are an awful lot of points still to be decided, and as you say, I mean, to a certain extent, it could come down to a single mistake or a single failure in an important leg. We are hoping to bring you an interview with some of the sailors on board Team Brunel, maybe get an update on Annie Lush's position. But before we do, let's take a little bit of a look at the points. This is something we're going to keep coming back to as the Volvo Ocean Race continues to rumble forward. These are the projected overall, because we've still got 3 boats out there racing: Team Sohunkai Scallywag, Team Axel Nobel, and Turn the Tide on Plastic. But the top 4 we know. Mafre claiming the leg win sees their points advantage extend to 29. Dongfeng Race Team, Vestas 11th Hour Racing, shared points 23 apiece. However, Dongfeng Race Team doing slightly better in the inshore series. The tie-break goes in their favour. Now, Team Brunel comes across the line to claim that 4th place, and 14 points is the total after 3 legs for Bauer, Becking and crew. A little bit of a challenge for the back 3 to try and close up that distance, and of course Mafre looking quite strong. But I want to ask you here about Team Brunel. They seem to have a little bit of a break. It's 23 to 14. Can they get themselves back up there on the podium? And if they can, how quickly could we expect them to reverse their fortunes?
Well, it's little by little is the answer. That if they really want to get up there, then they're going to have to start winning legs, basically. That's the only way that they can get a leg up over the 2 red boats that are currently dominating this race in such a fashion. That they need to get those 2 red boats, Mafre and Dongfeng Race Team, and indeed, let's not forget Vestas 11th Hour Racing, they need to get those boats behind them and get other boats in between. Remember that the way that you can start to create a difference between your competitors is not only get them behind you, but to get other boats in the mix as well. And so that will push them further down and allow one leg to play a much bigger difference than if they just beat them by 1 point on the water. Now remember, the key legs to keep an eye on, the one from Auckland to Itajai, that's another Southern Ocean leg. It's got incredible point scoring opportunities on the cards, because not only is it a double point scoring leg just like this one, but there's also another point for going around Cape Horn. So it pays to have that sort of intermediary scoring gate going in your favour. And then, of course, the transatlantic from Newport, Rhode Island, over to Cardiff in Wales. So double point scoring opportunities. There are still 2 left in the race. And if they're going to make it back up into the chocolates, those are the key races that they're going to have to focus on.
Well, let's judge how well they're going to do by how carefully they drop this main, because as you were saying just a few moments ago, this is the main powerhouse of the boat, and you really do have to take care of your equipment in the Volvo Ocean Race. It is a marathon, not a sprint. We're seeing the crew up at the mast and also at the back of the main, and now comes that careful flaking process.
Yeah, it's as the process that I was talking about, sailors call it flaking or bricking, whatever it is. The job is to get everybody united in the task. So they push the sail one side, and then they take a fold and they push it over to the other side, and then little by little the whole sail ends up nicely piled up on top of the main. And so this is actually the biggest gift that the sailors can give their shore crew and indeed themselves. Because remember, this is a pit stop leg. They don't have the full capacity of Nick Bice and Neil Cox's boatyard on hand. They've only got 2 members of the shore crew that are able to assist the sailing team in preparing the boat before, and another mammoth leg all the way back up to Hong Kong. And so taking time now and investing in this is going to make life easy for them later on.
And there's no better test of a team, is there, than after a long leg when you're a little bit tired, a little bit short-tempered, to be dropping the sail like this and maybe losing the coordination between front and back. I mean, I've been on so many boats and they've sailed so well, and just that small moment here where you're just wrestling with getting that massive sail in the big breeze down on the boom. Yeah, quite a few coarse words could be said at that moment, but it all seems to be going quite well. You can see the halyard line that they rigged up earlier on the back of the boom, just holding it off the coach roof at the moment as Bauer Becking fiddles with the main sheet and the hydraulics as he's taking the boat calmly into the breeze, and the rest of the crew just putting the main down at the moment. We are waiting to hear from the sailors themselves, who are going to be hopefully bringing you an interview in just a few moments. But earlier on, Dongfeng Race Team, after they finished the racing here, after they came through the finish line, this is what happened when they were going through to the dock. In their way is a bridge, and I've got to say, it's not very high. What you're watching here is the efforts that had to be made to get them underneath that bridge. They had to physically crank the boat over to a rib.
Yeah, that's right. And actually, I was somewhat aghast standing here in the studio, because I was watching the work that Dongfeng Race Team had to do, and I noticed that they had to manually crank the boat over onto its side. So they put the keel over to one side to help lean the boat over, and then they put a halyard down onto a rib or a zodiac onto the side, so one big weight basically at the masthead, and then they've just pulled the boat over onto its side. Now, if you've been doing so many jives all the way through the Southern Ocean, the last thing you want is one last arm-burning workout. But that's the sting in the tail of this leg before they finally make it into Melbourne.
And it is a rather beautiful city. We're seeing here the helicopter images flying over the cityscape. I don't know the geography of Melbourne particularly well, but I don't believe that was the bridge. That's certainly very short. I think the dockyard is off to the left. In fact, just coming into view in the middle of that dock is Vestas 11th Hour Racing, a moment away from parking up. Hopefully we're going to be joining them as they reach their friends and family on the shore. We're also waiting for Team Brunel just to get the boat safely packed away before we can talk to the crew. And of course, we've still got 3 boats out on the course as well. We've got Axel Nobel, Turn the Tide on Plastic, and Sun Hunkai Scallywag. Battles still raging and positions still to be decided. And there is Vestas 11th Hour Racing reversing into their position, into Melbourne for this short stopover. Friends and family on the dock, ready to receive Charlie Enright, Mark Towell, and the rest of the crew. So much to do, not only for the boat, but also for the crew in such a short space of time.
Well, yes, first of all, they need to go and find a Christmas tree and unwrap any presents that they could find. Bit of a wild ride that they had here, but they arrived earlier than expected. Our initial estimations for this leg showed them coming in around the 27th, and so getting in early means that hopefully Santa has been able to find them, and as they tuck in just underneath the Etihad Stadium there, they're going to be reunited with friends and family, find a Christmas tree, get a warm bath, some hot fresh food, which I can tell you as an ocean racing sailor myself is first on your wish list. But then, as you're saying, the shore team is very, very limited this time round, and indeed the sailing team, tired already from their exertions at sea, are going to have to turn around and prepare their racing steed for the leg to come.
And this is the moment that Vestas 11th Hour Racing surely would have felt couldn't arrive soon enough. The lines have been thrown over, the boat gets pulled in alongside the dock, and now finally the sailors get to step ashore straight into the warm reception of Melbourne. Friends and supporters, family, everybody on the dock, and in just a few moments' time we'll be hearing from the sailors themselves. Charlie Enright, the skipper, on the back corner of the boat. Simon Fisher, the navigator, a big name in this year's Volvo Ocean Race, obviously part of the winning Abu Dhabi Ocean Racing crew of last year, certainly bringing a lot of strength to this team.
Tony Maradia, the legendary Kiwi sailor, back here for, I think, his 7th edition of the race. He's been part of some pretty impressive Volvo Ocean Racing teams, sort of dating back to some of the stronger earlier days when the Kiwi teams were sticking it to the international ones. He's sort of been brought on as a sort of the grey hairs of experience on this relatively young team. And I think that Charlie Enright and Mark Towell have put together an incredible team that really balances experience and sort of youthful energy as well. And so that's why I really think that this team is going to be really one to watch as they come through.
I'm here speaking to Mark Towell, the co-skipper of the Vestas 11th Hour Racing. How was it, Mark? Tell me about your how you catching up for the last leg of the race.
Yeah, it was a very, very challenging leg. The conditions were pretty full on from basically the moment we left Cape Town until arriving here this morning. So it's been really tough on the crew. I'm really proud of how the teams performed, and just the fact that we got here in one piece.
Fantastic. Just a quick question, Mark. This team means a lot for sustainability. Can you just give us a message about what this team is all about in regards to sustainability?
Yeah, absolutely. We've taken quite a strong stance on sustainability. Our goal is to be the most sustainable team in the Volvo Ocean Race, and
we're doing a number of things to achieve that goal. And ultimately, what we're trying to prove is that you can be successful on the sporting side as well as care about the environment and the ocean at the same time.
And one final question, Mark, just congratulations in third place. You must be very happy.
Yeah, happy to be here. Happy to be here on Christmas. Merry Christmas to everyone. And look forward to spending a few days in Melbourne.
Thank you, Mark. Merry Christmas. Thank you.
Unbelievable setting here for the finish in Melbourne. I mean, quite a beautiful dockside. I haven't been lucky enough to be there myself, but great scenes here. We are just hearing from the sailors themselves on board Vestas 11th Hour Racing as they reach the dock with all the media, friends, family and supporters down there to speak to them.
Quick question in regards to how was it from when you left to have your interview with Andy down at the Cape Town end? Was it everything you expected and more now that you've arrived 14 days later?
Yeah, absolutely. The 14 days, it's I like to say it flew by, but it was a long, hard slog to get here. Everything we expected, the Southern Ocean really packed a punch this time, and but we're happy to be here. We're in one piece, we're in good shape, and we got third, so we're going to be pretty happy.
Fantastic, Stacey. No, it's a great effort, and it's nice to. I know that you've done the Volvo Ocean race many times, but once on the SCA, the all-girls crew. How is it being on Vestas 11th Hour Racing?
Yeah, this is an awesome team to be with for this. It's a really nice mix of guys of all experience, and to be with these guys, I'm really happy. And we're performing quite well already. So I think we've only got up to go from here.
You're doing brilliantly. Thank you very much, Stacey. Merry Christmas.
Yeah, thanks very much.
Thank you.
Doing Charlie quickly.
Okay, yeah.
Come down, picture. One more.
Well, Stacey Jackson just being interviewed on the dock there, part of Vestas 11th Hour Racing. It's been an unbelievable day. So far, we have seen 4 teams come across the finish line. Team Brunel still coming out. We have got a few more boats to finish and also a few more words from some of the key players of Vestas 11th Hour Racing. Let's have a listen to Charlie Enright, the co-founder and skipper.
Coming in third position and catching up to Dongfeng. Congratulations. Tell me how you were catching up.
We were catching up. We had some pressure applied from the guys in the back the last couple of days coming in, but we put the pressure back on ourselves to pick it up a notch, and we did with our boat speed, which allowed us to sail pretty conservatively in the last 36 hours, which was a nice thing, certainly after a long leg like this. So feeling decent about the result, but early days and still much to improve upon.
No, you're in a great position here. You'd be very happy with third on a double point leg.
Yeah, I think more than the leg, kind of focused on the overall. I think we're tied with Dongfeng now, and a little bit of a gap to Mafre, but one that we're looking to close certainly. Between here and Auckland, when we set ourselves up for a chance at another double point leg into the Southern Ocean.
Thank you, Charlie. Good luck for the rest of the Volvo Ocean race.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks, Charlie. Thanks, man.
Charlie Enright, the skipper of Vestas 11th Hour Racing. I mean, in the last edition of this race, he was considered the young guns. He's not a senior player in the Volvo Ocean race, but he's very quickly establishing himself as a major sailor to watch. Now, we are hoping to bring you some reactions from Team Brunel now that they have safely crossed the finish line. If we don't manage to do it, keep your eyes glued to social media. We will post the videos up on Facebook so you can watch them yourself. But there is still a major battle happening out on the water. We're going to take a look in just a moment at the virtual tracker and see where those races are being won and lost. We have seen, heartbreaking scenes with Axel Nobel with that jibe a few days ago, really causing problems for them. They now are back up to full speed, but with a huge mountain to climb, and it's just a race against the clock to give themselves enough time to be secure in what they need to do in that short stopover in Melbourne. They are sailing along right now, over 14 knots, but look at what is happening with Turn the Tide on Plastic and Sun Hung Kai Scallywag. Yes, Sun Hung Kai Scallywag is slightly out in front, but do not discount that final approach into Melbourne. The breeze that we saw with the rest of the teams might not hold. Now we have Bauer Becking, the skipper of Team Brunel. They've crossed the finish line, and we're going to hear from Bauer Becking. Bauer, it's Niall and Conrad in Alicante. Congratulations. Welcome to Melbourne. That was an incredibly hard leg.
Yes, good afternoon or good morning over here from Australia. It has been a really hard leg. I think was one of the ones what we always expected will be probably one of the toughest ones, and it lived up to that. Plenty of breeze and actually some awesome sailing as well.
We're just viewing you now, Bauer, from the stern cam, and we've got to say your boat looks incredibly clean, very good conditions. What, have you had any problems on board?
No, I think everything went really well. We lost our wind gear twice, but that's the only thing, just by the waves it just got whipped off. But for the rest there's no issues. We can start in 10 minutes on our way to Hong Kong. So that's actually a really good thing. Of course we had one little injury with Annie. We have to bring her to the hospital just for a double check-up. But that's actually the only setback what we've had, but the boat has done incredibly well.
Well, for the fans of Team Brunel, and more specifically the fans of Annie Lush, we saw her up on deck earlier. Can you give us her current situation?
Well, she has been sailing the last 3 days. She has been on and off in some of the watches. When it was easy, she was on deck, especially at the daytime, and you can just see when the waves are hitting you. But she has been very helpful the days before that as well. Downstairs, even you could see the pain in her face. She was still making all the meals and helping wherever she was doing. And she's just a fighter. She doesn't want to give up at all. But we're going to bring her out to the hospital, take an MRI, because we think she might have broken something internally. And of course, hopefully it's just a muscle, but we just have to be sure about that.
All right, well, we would kindly ask that you pass on all the well wishes that we're receiving here in Alicante from the many fans around the world, and also for your Dutch fans as well. Bauer, I'm just wondering if you have anything to say to them in Dutch.
Nou ja, natuurlijk naar de Nederlandse fans. Ik denk een hele grote bonus voor ons is dat we het 24-uur record verbroken hebben. De grootste afstand afgelegd. 538 mijl. En dus dat is toch iets waar we onwijs trots op zijn. Dus dat is denk ik iets waar we de kerst goed mee kunnen beginnen.
Oh, Bauer, thank you so much. Give our best and everybody's best to Annie Lush and enjoy Melbourne.
Okay, thank you guys. Have a good Christmas.
Very good point. Merry Christmas. I'm almost forgetting that. There's so much going on with the Volvo Ocean Race right now. But we have seen 4 boats cross the finish line. We have seen 4 boats put leg 3 behind them. There are still some good boats out there. I'd like to bring you the virtual tracker at the moment just to see the distances that we've got between those boats and the finish line. And let's just talk through here the predicted finishing times. First of all, we've got a little bit of a gap now. We've seen those first 4 before the first of the back 3. Little bit of a break. On the 26th, we're going to have Sun Hun Kai Scallywag, and they are going to be coming through at 1100 to 1530. That's Melbourne time. In UTC, it's midnight to 0430 in the morning. Turn the Tide on plastic. Also on the 26th, on Melbourne time, they're going to be 1420 to 1900, and in UTC 0320 to 0800. And then, of course, Axel. It's been an agonising wait to see what the Dutch team can do. They've got themselves back up to pace, but they're going to be on the following day. That's the 27th, 1900 to 0030 on the 27th in Melbourne. That's Melbourne time. But UTC on the 27th, 0800 to 1330 UTC. Still a bit of a range, still a little bit of a gap. But it's not all bad news for the crew on board Axel. In fact, they just sent in these images. Unbelievable scene of the Southern Lights. What an incredible display for this boat with all the hardship that they have had to face. A little bit of a Christmas present from the boat to the fans here of the Volvo Ocean Race. We've seen 4 teams cross the line. My thanks to Conrad for staying up here on Christmas Eve. Of course, we're going to be back on Christmas Day just to keep tabs on everything that's happening out there. And what an unbelievable leg it is. We're going to leave you here tonight with leg highlights of leg 3, an incredible Southern Ocean battle.
Cape Town conditions here. Got a beautiful southeaster, 25 knots. This is going to be good. Hold on to your hats.
Offshore with some big waves and 40 knots, so it's a bit complicated. Upwind with some tacks to do.
We have to cross a ridge. So a ridge is always difficult to cross because this is a transition between two winds.
You know, I think we've closed quite a lot on the leaders here. It's been a little good move for us.
So it's the calm before the storm. We've got about 24 hours before we know the wind's going to start building and we get our first really big depression that is going to pack a punch.
Beautiful Southern Ocean.
Into the Southern Ocean. This is where the fun begins.
We had a jibe on in pretty hard conditions, 35 knots, 40. The main slamming over on the runners, breaking the battens. The worst part is we've pulled the track off the back of the mast.
We're having a big battle here with Dongfeng. The last 2-3 days been just a little bit crazy with so many jibes going on in the exclusion zone.